Okay, Gunnar Rehlin from Sweden.
The new thing.
Okay.
The new
thing.
now.
Off you go.
Okay. Well, someone wrote that your career has come sort of full circle with this, starting with the short and now you've gone back to the feature. So do you feel that in a way yourself?
Not really, because I felt like I mean, obviously this was one of the first short films I did, live action. But, you know, over the years, kind of loving stop motion and thinking about looking at the original drawings and kind of expanding on the memories of that time, you know, in Burbank and the kids in school, the teachers, you know, and the opportunity to do black and white 3D stop motion just made it feel like a whole new thing for me. And that was important to have that feeling.
How do you feel? It must have felt a little bit odd that, I mean, considering that when you did the short, that Disney said, no, we don't want this, and now you're back doing the feature at Disney.
Yeah, well, you know, things change, you know. I mean, Disney was a different company at that time, obviously. I mean, when I was there back at those days, I mean, you know, they were in a process of changing. They didn't really know which direction they were going in as a company, I don't think. And so I was grateful for the opportunity to do the short, even though it never got released. But, you know, they were, this time, you know, they were open about the black and white. They were very supportive of the film and all. So, you know, I'm very grateful for that.
Did anyone try to persuade you not to do it in black and white? I mean, of course, you...
No, they didn't, because I made the case, which I believe in, that it's part of the emotion of it. It's part of the beauty of it. For me, that's a strong character element to the piece.
How different is, I mean, apart from the length and the budget, of course, but how much does the feature differ from the short?
Well, if the short's sort of more simply based on the boy and his dog, it's sort of, if you take the sort of Frankenstein structure, and this sort of adopts more of like the structure of the later films that they did, like House of Frankenstein or House of Dracula or Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, where they had a bunch more monsters thrown into the mix. And I think it sort of followed that. And then that got me thinking about, well, the other monsters, but also the kids, you know. I started to recall the kids I remember from school. So that, it just felt more of a natural progression. It didn't feel like I was just sort of adding on to the short. It felt like everything was based on like those memories.
How did you work to make it sort of scary but not too scary?
Well, I grew up on these kind of movies, so I never was scared by them. I mean, some kids are, some aren't. But I also just recalled and tried to remind people of past Disney films. You know, I mean, Bambi, Lion King. You go back to even Snow White. There are elements in it. That's part of the Disney tradition, I would say.
What's your own favorite of the 30s monster movies?
Oh, they're all. It's hard for me to pick, but I think if you go back to the originals like Frankenstein, Dracula, Invisible Man, Bride of Frankenstein, I mean they're very powerful films, and I think that revisiting them recently as I did, I could remember like why they remained in my conscious so much, is that they're very dreamlike, powerful films.
What knowledge do you think that kids today have of these old films? I mean, my daughter is 20. The only one she's seen was The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And it was boring.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, it's an interesting point, and I've tried it with my own kids because I thought, well, in this day and age, everything's so quick cutting and rapid fire and so much stimulus and information. It's like, well, can they sit and watch something? And I found my boy was quite fascinated, and I think the reason that worked for him still is that the moods are quite powerful, and so I was happy to see that even in the day and age where it's rapid fire, even like special effects, like when looking at Ray Harryhausen films. Well, obviously, nowadays that stuff is so smooth and realistic, but I think there's still a place. Children, my kid still you love watching Ray Harryhausen films. So I think there's still hope.
You've never won an Oscar. Do you hope to be nominated for this one?
I don't really ever think about that sort of thing. I mean, things like that, things like reviews and box office and that kind of stuff is completely out of your hands. You know, I mean, all you do is try to make the best film you can make.
I checked on IMDb today. It says you got nothing lined up after this.
No.
You don't?
No.